Father Lomnitzer, Ethan. Hello, welcome. How are you all?
I'm great, Charles. How are you?
Living
Ethan, it's always good to see you.
I'm doing well as well. Thanks for having me today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, Ethan, because you are the man behind the magic, is what I think your business card says for Veritas Catholic Radio. You are our fearless and intrepid producer. Is that the right term? Or executive producer? What do we call you? So
I think I'm just the producer of the show. But
we should make you an executive producer. I feel like it's arbitrary. We're gonna make you're like the Wizard of Oz, right? Instead of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Now we're bringing you out and we're showing you to the world.
You've done a wonderful job. I'm just making the audio sound better, honestly, and some of the design.
He's very, very humble. Yes. But you've also been editing out all of our flubs and rants that get too annoying or too long-winded because we have to stay within the technical specifications of everything. So it's a tough word. Can you make that sound better, Ethan, when it goes live? So
I'll do my best, and also working around Rectory Wi-Fi on the first episode.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, but hey, we've had it fixed. We've revamped the entire internet, not just in this building, but in the church and the school because of me and this podcast. So the workers here at St. Mary's are very thankful to this podcast. They just aren't really sure about it.
Great. Yeah. And so, Ethan, question that's probably been on the top of our listeners' minds: are you or are you not related to Harry Potter?
I think he's a distant cousin, and maybe some like English heritage there. Maybe
you don't
Scottish.
You don't have a lightning bolt scar. I can see at least on the video feed. No. So no, you're not like trying to kill Ralph Fiennes. That's not something that's obsessing you, is it?
No. No.
All right. Well, that's, glad we got that established. So,
not that cool.
Yeah, Ethan, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in central Pennsylvania outside a smaller city named Altoona. So I grew up, outside of Altoona, Pennsylvania. Its claim to fame being where Luigi Mangione was found. And it's called Claysburg. So some people in Washington, D.C. might take weekend trips to Bedford. It's about a half hour north of there. So
that's the area of Pennsylvania that we call Pennsyltucky in Connecticut.
Pennsyltucky. Actually, yeah. That's. I shouldn't have said that. I feel like that's a disservice to my community, but that's fair.
So, have you been to the infamous McDonald's?
I have. I actually drive by it very frequently. My parish, you can see it from my parish, and it's just another McDonald's.
Just another McDonald's, except one day there'll be a national plaque there to recognize historic events.
Yeah, so. My brother has a small welding business, and they were welding near the courthouse, and he was like all the press was here, and one of my friends, one of her photos was picked up by the AP. So there was a lot of buzz for Altoona during that month, and the Luigi hat wearing people were outside of our courthouse. So it was an exciting time for us.
It's, and all publicity is good publicity, right? Isn't that what they say in marketing?
Yes. Before I would say, I'm from Altoona, and no one would know. But now I have like some hope that someone might know something.
Well, even the diocese is not just like the Diocese of Altoona. It's combined with another city, right? As a Altoona Johnstown.
Yeah, Johnstown. It's sort of interesting. Johnstown actually was larger than Altoona for a point. It used to have 100,000 people, and the economy has really crashed there. And there's like 15,000 people living there now in the proper city. So Altoona has been stable, but it's been difficult there. So yeah, that the hyphen was added for Johnstown because they had grown so much and wanted like equal, I guess, representation in the diocese, but
couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle it.
Yeah, they couldn't keep up with Altoona.
So you grew up there and you still live there, right, Ethan? Right? Yes. Yeah. And so how many siblings do you have?
I have two siblings. I'm the middle child, so I have an older brother and a younger brother.
So you have a lot of psychological issues to work out, right, being the middle child.
No. Let's have love for middle children. You're okay. You're outnumbered on this show.
Okay.
I'm the middle if you count the dogs. So,
well, are you the oldest twin? Or are you who was first?
I'm the younger twin. So if I was born first, I would have had his name. You could tell. But yeah, so that's a whole other psychological thing to unpack. But yeah, so Ethan, so you're the middle child, and you grew up and you went to Franciscan University, right? So you're what's the mascot for Steubenville? It's the Muckrakers or the Muskrats or the
Barons.
The Barons.
Baron von Steuben, who was, I guess he was a German, like he was a Prussian general who came to help during the Revolutionary War. So, and that's like, there's a statue of him in Steubenville and before Franciscan, yeah, it's a whole story, but the Barons were the Barons. So I went to Franciscan University after I graduated high school in 2021. And I had went to public school, Charles, something you have in common. From an episode previously that I had listened to. I went to public school after like 8 years at Catholic school. And honestly, public school was good for me because it challenged me in my faith. I live in a very non-Catholic area, Protestant area. And that was actually good for me in doing research for the faith. But you can't always be like pouring out your cup and be fighting for the faith every day when you're in high school. So I really wanted to pick a Catholic school. And the TORs are actually founded in my diocese, about a half hour from Loretto. Well, a half hour from Altoona and Loretto. So there's also a tradition of the TORs in the area. And also Franciscan had incredible financial aid for anyone looking at schools. So that's why I went there. And it was such a blessing to find out what it was like to live the faith in community. I didn't really get that here in my town. And yeah, so I studied marketing at Franciscan, and that's sort of what led me to start a business after I graduated.
Well, yeah, we could rag on Franciscan for a while, and I don't want to make enemies unnecessarily. I do consider myself an alumnus of Catholic University, as the Alumni Association recognized it, even though I didn't graduate. But no, I never would have even thought that Franciscan even had a mascot. That's never even crossed my mind. But when you talk about living in community, I think one of the great things. I don't want to say if I say great. One of the draws to Franciscan for a lot of students is the households. Were you a member of a particular household?
I was actually not. I found that people on campus would tend to put you in a box if you joined one, and it wasn't in an effort to be like quirky or different or unique. But I had by my sophomore year, which is when most people would start entering into households, I had a stable friend group. You know, I had grown out of the freshman year friend group stuff, and I had a great friend, so I had a community anyways. And so I didn't really think it necessary to join a household. And so I didn't join a household, unfortunately. I know that's not very interesting.
I think you'd be Gryffindor if you were in one, right? So
no, that's the big distinction, is because Catholic University does not have frats, and I think households, they're like a way to try to baptize fraternities and sororities. But Charles and I would always joke that we were a part of the biggest frat on campus, the Knights of Columbus.
Kappa Chi. So technically it is a fraternal organization, but it's not really a frat.
Okay, well, that's a good joke. That's good.
But so that's great, Ethan. So Franciscan University, and they have. So yeah, what was it like? Yeah, Franciscan, right? You obviously had a lot of opportunities to grow in your faith. Did you, tell us more about that and the experience on campus?
When I went to Franciscan, I still had many friends from home, and so I would come home to visit them. So I was sort of split, because I only lived my home was 3 hours away. But so there was honestly a rough period, I think, after the freshman friend group had folded. And because I wasn't in a household, that was a bit difficult. But really things turned so good once I did the Austria semester. And that was my sophomore spring. But I went knowing absolutely nobody. And I remember getting off the plane and saying, I really hate my life. I don't know why I did this. And I was sitting in the airport texting my friends from home. And I met so many friends there, and they were friends, of course, when I went back on campus. And that was good. That's how I found community, was through that program. And I had a few friends that were consistent, and we, I didn't go to Tuesday night praise. I'm not very charismatic. I'm not a big fan, I guess, of charismatic renewal. I don't think it's for everyone. And so I would go with my friends like off campus to mass occasionally. And so I was like, I was more spiritually fed through the good conversations I had with my friends, because God was very much present in the conversations and the fellowship that I found there for the first time in my life. And there were, like, I had a friend that was probably in one of the frat-like households, and it was very just helpful for me to see what it's like to live the faith, like being able to go to a party, for example, and like you can also be virtuous and have fun. And that was the greatest benefit for me going to Franciscan. And that was sort of my experience there, because I wasn't very charismatic.
Yeah. But so you went to Austria, Österreich. Did you speak German when you were around there, Ethan?
No, while I was there. I have learned twice, and now I can speak ein bisschen Deutsch, but a little. But yeah, and during the Austria semester, I mean, you're living on a fairly small but beautiful campus with 250 Americans. So the Austrians themselves often don't want to talk with you anyways, because you've taken over their town for 6 months. But like I said, I've since went back independently twice, which is one of the benefits of virtual work. And that's been a great experience. And without Franciscan University, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go back again. So that was
How Catholic was the education, right? So like you said, you studied marketing. Was it was it like helpful to set you up in a secular world, or was it like Catholic marketing, or like what was the kind of lean towards it? Maybe like an ethical sense, like what's like Catholic marketing? And
I would say, so I actually switched my majors from finance to marketing, and I thought the marketing program covered a lot of basics, but I had been working in marketing already. So I interned with Catholic Vote for what was sort of a rolling internship. So I worked with them for like 2 years, and I had already learned a lot of processes. So honestly, I found some of the classes to not be challenging, because I was like working them every day. And that was difficult for me, because I could be getting paid to do what I'm learning about at the moment, rather than sitting in class. But I think everything sort of made sense when it was time to write my thesis. And I did my thesis on how graphic design as a marketing tool can uphold human dignity, because we're talking about sort of threading the needle with Catholic social teaching and marketing, and I really want to talk about graphic design, because that's definitely my niche in marketing. And it was amazing, because from the sort of core classes that Franciscan has set up with philosophy of the human person, Catholic visual arts, and the Catholic imagination, I was able to pull those things together with my marketing classes in that thesis. And I think that has been a great benefit for me working with Catholic organizations, because I mean, oftentimes someone would say, like, what's your design approach? Or every potential client should ask you what your design approach is. It's more than just making things look nice, right? There's reasons for why some things look nice. And I guess, not to be too preachy, but all things are made for the human person. And because I had these like different classes that were Catholic, and then good professors to walk with me there, I was able to make that my thesis. So everything sort of came together there at the end, but I'm very thankful that I worked throughout my time at Franciscan.
That's great, Ethan. Yeah, no, I think you learn so much in the classroom, and then, but learning stuff in the real world, right? And so I always tell my econ professors that, like, I said, I learned a lot from you, but like 90% of what I've learned, I learned in the first year of work, right? Or something like that, right? Because there's a lot more kind of on the ground, a lot of soft skills, how you manage your time, projects, right? And interact with others. But also, obviously, the practical knowledge. Like, it's one thing to write a paper on something idealistic, but then also to be able to actually take it to the ground. But at the same time, obviously, there's value to, critical thinking and being able to articulate ideas, and that's what Franciscan can do quite well. And I had a question related to the graphic design. So so you mentioned that because you designed our logo, right, our icon. So you did a very good job with that, Ethan.
Thank you for your feedback. That was
yes.
helpful.
So it's going to be on billboards everywhere, I think, and limited edition merchandise and the like. But you mentioned how you approach graphic design, and you approach it obviously looking at the deeper level to it. So kind of, when you talk both, obviously, you talked a little bit of the spiritual aspect, but also can you talk both the spiritual aspect and then the practical? Like, what kind of things have you learned or realized or discovered, or what do you try to incorporate to make sure that you can bring beautiful graphic design to the market?
Yeah. Well, first I have to say that I think the church speaks to every aspect of the human life, obviously in business, and that's the point of this podcast, right? And so I knew that there was a way that we could speak to human dignity in marketing. And I mean, of course, there's like some companies try to even form groups based around an idea, so that way they can sell things to them, and that should never be abused, obviously. But graphic design is sort of a small part in this whole picture of marketing, but most importantly, right? Because if you have an ugly poster, no one's going to read your message, right? You can communicate your poster even with just plain text, but it's graphic design that gets the person to say that stops and reads it. And when I was in Austria, I took a class with Professor Fugerus, and he's done sculptures throughout America, and he teaches sculpting as well, and he's done stained glass and renovated churches. And I really like sort of this incarnational approach about everything that the church has. So I basically, throughout my graphic design, would pull principles that Michelangelo used, or mostly Michelangelo da Vinci would use, for like why they thought things were beautiful, and more so even sort of what Giotto and St. Francis of Assisi came about, and being really, they're the people that, the two individuals that change how, as Catholics, we see art for the first time. And we really focus on the fact that out of all the created things, the Son of God, the human figure, was fitting for him. So that must be the perfect thing. So these elements of beauty, or how we see the world, are ultimately found within ourselves. So Professor Fugerus had done this amazing presentation about the divine proportion in our hands, and Michelangelo and Da Vinci have all done this through their own sketches of anatomy, right? And, it's sort of a funny joke. It said, we see now more casual streetwear, and someone's jeans are like below their knees when they're like shopping at the store or whatever. And it was like, this is why this is ugly, right? It's because it doesn't portray the human person the best way and how he was created. And God, like that ratio is in the flower, the divine proportion, or some people, secularists, would say that Fibonacci. But we're like how God put rhythm in our hearts. And when we talk about graphic design, architecture, art, there's architecture and art that uplifts the human person, and that speaks to sort of the human need for decoration, and also just like emotion, and also to even the human proportion, right? Like a lot of things today, a lot of younger people today want walkable cities, et cetera, but they don't understand why that's a good thing. And it's a good thing. Why do they go to Europe and they enjoy it? It's because Michelangelo specifically designed piazzas. That way one person's voice could reach the other end, not so 100 cars could fit in between it, right? And the reason why we find those things enjoyable is because it is made for us, and we understand that even like in subconsciousness, right? So I think when we're trying to communicate things through graphic design, our ideas through graphic design, they're best communicated when we use those principles, right? So what does that look like? Well, of course, there's hierarchy. God put hierarchy into the world, and that's an important part with text or even with photos, where we want people to lead the eye. And then also, just by our placement, following that sort of arc that is found through that ratio that's literally in our fingers, in the proportions of our body. It's sort of an angle. For those listening, I can't quite describe it, but when in doubt, I've used that, and it always like makes the design look cleaner. And then when we talk about hierarchy, like it's a small detail, but it's how large should our header text be compared to our subtext. It's like, oh, why does that really matter? Like, it's like not that big of a difference, but we want people to easily stop and see something and be able to absorb the information and move on. And these things are proven because I think part of it's that we see it. God has ingrained that in us, that to help us receive information quickly. And So that's sort of my design approach there. And I mean, I've seen graphic design that does not put the human person first. It's like super industrial, they would say. And, it's very simple. It's sort of harsh, like big contrast and in your face. And I think what we can see with social media now even is that those things, like constant sort of stimulation, is really bad for us as well. So I try to integrate a lot of Catholic art into graphic design that I do for Catholic clients, art generally, even if it's secular like clients, and then just take lessons from great Catholics. Like I have a project with a parish here in Altoona, actually with the cathedral, and I've been using like sort of a Caravaggio approach of light and dark to our photography because that's like so inherently Catholic. And yeah, so that's sort of my graphic design approach, I guess. And it's better visually to see like examples of this, but I hope I did my best to describe it.
Well, I think our logo definitely emphasizes all the greatness and beauty.
Well, that was a way of you complimenting yourself and how you look. Nice. No, but Ethan, I think what you said makes perfect sense, and it brought to mind a lot of things. I thought I had this suppressed memory, but it's still there. I was a philosophy major at Catholic U, and then later when I finished in seminary. And in our metaphysics class, we had to memorize the opening line to Aristotle's Metaphysics, and that was coming up as you talk. And I memorized some of it, but I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. Aristotle wrote, before Christ, all men by nature desire to know. An indication of this is the delight we take in our senses. For even apart from their usefulness, they are loved for themselves, and above all others, the sense of sight. For not only with a view to action, but even when we are not going to do anything, we prefer seeing, one might say, to everything else. The reason is that this, most of all the senses, makes us know and brings to light many differences between things. And this sets up his understanding of how knowledge works and all these things. But that idea that like sight is pleasurable because it's this innate desire to know and to make distinctions and the human person, and it reveals to ourselves. Michelangelo has that famous quote where when he talks about sculpting the David, he says, they asked him how he did it. And he said, I just had the rock and I chipped away everything that wasn't him. And in many ways, that's what art does. It reveals our true self, right? The image of the creator that we are made in God's image and likeness. That's what beauty does. And so graphic design that mirrors the human person, mirrors the divine, because there's a divine quality. And that's why ugly churches are so bad and so offensive. Like the 1950s brutalism and the whitewashing trend of the 70s and 80s. Because you have this beautiful architecture, right? But it's not adorned with anything, and it's not an abuse, but it transcends us and reminds us, I think, of our dignity. And so, like you said, like the church is the original graphic designer, and how it built its churches, its stained glass windows, right? We're not only just beautiful, but we're also catechetical, right? They taught things, and then everything, right? It's like a living. Yes. The church is a living institution, and even the building, right, speaks volumes because we can see things and they remind us of those things. And so that's really, I thought your explanation was fantastic. It just brought those minds.
Oh, to your point, I mean, you mentioned ugly churches. I think part of it is that we forgot what churches are made for, honestly. They're made for people. They're made for people to enjoy, people to worship, first and foremost, of course. And when we forget that things are made for people, I mean, this is something in the Bible, was that all of creation was made so for Adam to sort of govern over, right? And if we forget that, like in graphic design as a marketing tool, if we forget that at the end of the day, there are people that are going to see our designs, then it just becomes like we're just trying to do something cool, and then nothing like flows together. I found it's like whatever, that's like sort of very much so up to the person. Like with these ugly churches, it's this architect who thought this was like shocking and cool, but we don't need to always go for value. We need to go for something that is like enjoyable for the end viewer, basically. And yeah, it's interesting when we forget what everything is, like all things are for man to take in and then give glory back to God through, right? And if we take those two important pieces out,
it's an important point, because I think
I have to say it.
When people think of like worship, it's like we're doing this for God and everything, and like, yes, partially, but like our worship doesn't add anything to God. He doesn't need it, right? He speaks of this in the Psalms. Like, you think I eat your burnt holocausts and rams and stuff? Like, I don't need this. Like, I created them. And so worship is just as much of a reminding us who we are in relationship to God and what he did for us. And then taking all the stuff that he gave us, right, and giving it back to him, right? Like, I think it's in the Roman canon where he talks about, like, the gifts, this spotless victim, this holy victim, right? We give it back to your majesty, but acknowledging that it comes from him. So yeah, there's the human person is at the central element of this, but precisely because God became man.
Yeah. And so you've given many gifts, Ethan, from God, and you've turned them into a business, right? I mean, not like an indulgence business or factory, but you have I'm getting the name here correctly, Potter Marketing and Design, right? Which is what your enterprise is. And so tell us what that is and what kind of work you do apart from making Philomeno's eyes sound good and look good.
So Potter Marketing and Design, I think, it wasn't like I woke up one day and was like, I want to start a business. It very much came through a need that I had learned through working in a marketing space. I started a Catholic blog when I was in high school that got 25,000 followers. Not saying this to tout, but it's more of like, that's sort of how I got introduced, was by accident, like sort of accidentally making things. And I was able to sort of leverage that when I applied for the job at Catholic Boat. And then unfortunately, because I was in college, I couldn't get the full-time job, but I got this internship. So I worked with them for 2 years, and then some people were contacting me on LinkedIn. They need graphic designers, etc. But when I was working with others, I really needed the opportunity to find something deeper for graphic design, more than just making something look cool. And I think the things I was learning in Austria at Franciscan University definitely made me want to do that all the more. And God blessed me with just putting the right people in front of me at the right time, so that way I could take the necessary steps to get there. It wasn't always easy. There were definitely times that I had to walk away from a contract. But working with Catholics has been so good because they're also in it sort of for your good. And so when I was starting out, and I need more hours or something when I was in college still, clients were always good to sort of come forward and offer me more work. And that was very much a blessing. So the tagline is Beauty Matters. I think that we should be making beautiful graphic design because at the end of the day, we're communicating a mission, and we are obviously communicating a good, true, and beautiful mission that God has given us. And that can be applied to everything. I think as a Catholic, everything should be beautiful, right? It's not really news, but a little bit sharing about the design approach is sort of what I bring differently to Catholic organizations, because there are a lot of Catholic companies that do marketing. I don't necessarily think that they have a marketing approach, and so I'm able to bring that to different organizations by bringing that design approach to them, and I think that's been very helpful. And yeah. So the tagline is Beauty Matters, and I try to apply Catholic principles in visual arts to everything that we work on.
That's very important, right? To be able to take and align your faith so closely with your work, right? And being able to bring that to fruition. So do you ever do coats of arms as part of your design, or do you have any thoughts on heraldry more broadly? And I think for all of our listeners, this is probably what they've been waiting all season for, as a follow-up, because we mentioned coats of arms at least one other time. But Ethan, fire away, indulge us.
I love heraldry. But unfortunately, I am a graphic designer, but I'm not an artist. Oh. Okay. And I think that's very much illustration, right? And I wish I could do art, but I'm not an artist. So if you, I think you have one. That was what was on my Christmas card.
Exactly. Right? So yeah, before the show, we were talking about Christmas card that I sent you. The post office for the record did not send me a Christmas card. So
we have a post office story we can share later one day.
Heard that one before. Anyways, so Ethan, heraldry is something that I find very interesting, as I think most people do when they, really, it's like, it's a fundamental human need that's quenched. And so, but recognizing that, flags and seals and others still serve purpose today. Yeah. So I could talk a lot about this, but unfortunately, and fun fact, there are no heraldry podcasts. So I think maybe Ethan, you and I can do a spin-off.
Keep it for that.
The heraldry hour. Yeah. So.
Someone who has an affinity for Austrian culture, we could start with all the heraldry.
Oh yeah, Austrian heraldry is they are big into their, mantling and, I'm sorry?
Habsburgs.
Yes, the Habsburgs. So, yes, right. Well, we read the book.
I think it's the 7 Rules
becoming a Habsburg.
Habsburg. It's a very good book. Highly recommend it. But somebody who lived not so far from Austria, Dostoevsky, said. That was smooth. We were telling Ethan about our transitions and try to squeeze one in there, but it's related to more so related to your tagline of your business, your motto, I guess. Beauty matters. He wrote in the book, I believe it's The Idiot. He said, "Beauty will save the world," and right. And it's I got into an argument with a Dominican. Not really an argument. I just said something and he started arguing with me. Right, the Transcendentals.
What have you heard? NCUA,
maybe, yeah. I said truth, beauty, and goodness are the Transcendentals, and he goes, "Well, we don't really know about beauty." And someone argued this, and I was just sitting there like, "Wow, okay." But this idea, right, that God is good, God is truth, and God is beauty, right? He's the author and source of all things. And so, one of the things you said earlier too is that there's a hierarchy of beauty. And if beauty will save the world and beauty is, directly related to God as part of his being, then this hierarchy of beauty also has to be objective, right? And so I detest, I loathe that saying, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So how do you, and then that also brings into questions of taste. So I'm really interested in your thoughts maybe on the hierarchy of beauty versus different people have different tastes, different preferences. Certain art works in certain situations and not. And I would say that's more hierarchical, but I wonder if you have any thoughts kind of along those lines.
That's very challenging for me. It is something I wrote about in my thesis, but most of it was from referencing things because I had only taken one visual arts class and knew sort of the very apparent principles of beauty. But I know that Thomas Aquinas, actually you mentioned Dominicans, lays out the need, for something to be beautiful, it must have these few things. Some of it was completeness. That was one of the ones that I remember. It has to be whole. We see sometimes in architecture purposely, a building is cut in half, right? That's inherently not beautiful. But, going back to sort of the incarnation, right? I think what's most beautiful is right before us in that Jesus Christ took on our image, the Son of God took on the image of man. And so that just makes sense that that's the most good, the most beautiful image in creation. Why would Jesus Christ take it in sort of an imperfect image, right? And so that's sort of what I talk about, I guess, with different, any principles in the human body, God put rhythm in our hearts. One of the reasons why we love music so much, right? So I haven't been able to dive into very big theology. I would like to sort of go for masters in art, but at the moment, I just try to take as much as I can from the artist that's sort of apparent to me and apply there. But
has someone ever disliked something that you said and you're like, no, this is objectively beautiful?
No, because I think you can apply these in different ways, and it does come down to preference. But there's times when things are definitely objectively ugly, right? We know this is ugly, right? So I think that is sometimes difficult, but at the end of the day too, I have to balance trying to make beautiful things,
creating shareholder value,
customers, right? That's what business exists for: satisfy needs, right? So at this level, not yet, but the shareholder is me. Well, no, I guess it's my clients. Anyways, never mind. But yeah.
But yeah, so you have this entrepreneurial venture, which I think, Ethan, is really admirable, and being able to, you're kind of your master of your own fate, right? Being able to run your organization, determine which clients you take and how you approach things. So that's really exciting. You have a lot of ownership, right? A lot of it's, for some people, it's probably a bit scary, right? Because, it's not a broader institution that's keeping things afloat. It's you that's keeping things afloat. So Ethan, maybe talk a little bit about some of the exciting things you've learned and experienced having kind of you are having this very entrepreneurial venture here.
The biggest thing I've learned is to have peace of mind when invoices are slow being streamed. I mean, that is something that would make me very anxious. Like, I am well taken care of, thanks be to God, but sometimes there are these things that are coming in slow, and that would really freak me out after my first year of college. But then just understanding to myself, no, these contracts are going to be taken care of, everything's good. And yeah, that was something I really had trouble with the first year, because also it was a bit more serious, right? You have college loans, these other things to pay. It's not just you're in college having fun and the money that you're making is extra, right? And anyway, so that was, for me, especially too, so that's the first lesson for me was just calm down. Things are going to work. Those things are going to work themselves out in 2 weeks. You're going to be good. Also understanding that account receivable means that you have a right to that, right? So it's basically yours. That was the first thing for me. The second thing is also there are sort of heated moments, I think, with clients. And sometimes that's because the client might be very stressed. They have a deadline they have to get done. And maybe it's I didn't get back to them for a few hours or whatever. Or maybe they're just stressed out, and I presented a design that they had a different thing in mind for. And just telling myself okay, this is just everyone has bad moments, but this is still a good client and they still think I'm providing value to them and their organization. It's just that, Christmas is very busy and they were sort of disappointed because they had to get something out. Right. And I remember some periods of time when I was working during college, just thinking it was the end of the world. This client wasn't happy with this design, whatever. But, always just having a mindset, I guess, of working things out, a mindset of improving what's going on was really helpful for me. I think I would have more of a tendency to be a pessimist than an optimist. And working, especially this last year post-college, because I graduated in December. Well, I graduated a year ago, basically. And those are sort of the greatest things, is just learning to take a deep breath, relax, things will work out. And then also having a mindset of we're going to work this out, things are going to get better. And those have been great, really great skills for me that I see helpful in other aspects of my life. And then another thing that's been helpful is learning how to ask the right questions to understand what a client wants, because a lot of times, especially beginning, I sort of have learned what questions to ask throughout to identify their needs, especially visually. That can be hard because someone has something in their mind and they might not have the language to sort of speak it to you. And so that has forced me to learn to ask the right questions to bring out what they have in mind. And so good communication has been key, especially working remote with so many clients, asking clarifying questions. And I'm sure one could ask too many questions, but it's better to ask more than not enough, I found. But so.
Yeah, Ethan, it sounds I've been rewatching Mad Men. And so it's a lot of, managing. That's what I imagine your life is, Ethan. You're smoking a cigarette and pitching artwork, and the clients can be, what they are. But at the same time, obviously recognizing that you're trying to find what works for them, but also bringing your expertise and value to it. And then invoicing. I'm sure you may find this boring, but this is actually very exciting because invoicing obviously is a big part of the economy, right? And there's factoring and all sorts of things, and there's I can get really complicated some of the financing that makes invoicing work and discounting receivables and things, but I won't, because I'm just going to throw in a brief anecdote from Warren Buffett, Buffett's dad. Just kidding. It's a little bit of a chuckle there. The inventor of the buffet. Warren Buffett learned from his dad that you always want to pay suppliers early. Like, don't wait till the last day. And he said, yeah, there's, in theory, if you have thousands of invoices, you're a big, sophisticated global conglomerate, right? You can actually, hedge that a little bit and make money off your, like, not paying it paying it on the due date and like giving that float. But he said that even though it's not a core value generation to your companies that you're making money off the float of what you have to pay, but also that, like, for all of because there's many different organizations in the economy, and particularly those that have different cash flow constraints or different they're trying to make payroll, they're trying to get in supplies, right? The cash flow is king, and so being able to make sure that you pay earlier as soon as received, and so I think invoicing as a virtue, right? We could do a whole episode on that. But you mentioned that you work remote as well, Ethan. So, which it doesn't mean that you have a remote. You're not working remote like for a television. Again, fun pun there. You can put laugh tracks in, Ethan, after all this. But tell us about what that's like. Not going to an office in a cubicle every day.
Yeah, I think it's taken a lot of time at coffee shops, right? Because if I work at home, sort of, it's just my dog sleeping all day, so it's good for me to get out. But I think remote work has brought so many benefits to my life. Like I said, I mentioned I went back to Austria twice after my study abroad, and that was all because I was able to work. So that's like a different thing, but I was able to spend 2 summers there because I was able to bring my work with me, right? And that was a great privilege. But I think one of the things that is most beneficial and Catholic companies lose sight of is that it's good for our employees who are invested in the mission of a Catholic organization to not leave their home. And like, if we bring all the Catholics to one city to work together, which a lot of people would advocate for, we're pulling like missionaries from sort of the heart of the heartland, I guess, 50%. Half of our country, half of our brothers live in like rural areas. So having the opportunity to work remote has been a gift for me because there's not a lot of marketing gigs in Altoona. Like, I'm sure I could find one, but I probably wouldn't be happy. I want to work for Catholic organizations. I can't be everywhere, right? And working remote has sort of given me the opportunity to work with Catholic organizations across the country, and then to stay home, which is sort of unexpectedly a place that I've come to love, working and living in a small town. My plan was to get a visa and learn German in January. Obviously, that's not happening. And because I came home from Austria this summer in September, and I was like, God has given me the gift to be able to live here still and get a job here, which honestly some people don't have and they have to move away. And I didn't want to squander that. And so working remotely, when I returned from Austria, there was I've been able to work with friends to start a Catholic sort of community here. And part of this is because my schedule is flexible and I'm single, right? So I have the opportunity to put in some extra time or meet with someone during the day, and that other folks in our community that don't have. But a huge benefit of working remote has been being able to give myself to my community and also bring in some of the things that I'm learning from across the country from working with these Catholic companies to sort of small town America that we would normally not get access to. So yeah, I could talk a little bit about that young adult group, and sort of, I guess it's relative to Beauty Saving the World, actually, and
well, no, let's interrupt for a second to say, if there's anyone listening in or near Altoona, Ethan is single. He's got a business. He's a successful guy. He's producing one of the most popular, soon to be most popular radio show podcasts out there in the Catholic business world. So, Charles, the more I think we limit our category, I think the more popular we can be in it. So
exactly.
So Ethan's great. He's got my full vote of confidence. For anyone out there who's interested, find him on LinkedIn or Instagram. We can tag you you can tag yourself in the show notes. But yeah, tell me more about that young adult group. I think that's great.
Well, I sort of mentioned that, I guess, in small and sort of rural America, there's 50,000 people that live in Altoona proper, and then about 100,000 in the total area, which honestly that's not like a big city, right? But there's a lot of people to pull from, and there's no reason why we can't have like Catholic community when there's 100,000 people like living in our area, right? And when I came back, there were some sort of attempts at building Catholic community, but it wasn't fulfilling the need, right? And when I spoke to some Catholics who wanted to stay, but they moved back, one of the major problems that they had was that there weren't sort of nice nights to go out and dress up and do things, right? A nice date night in Altoona is going to a small restaurant, right? And so I was just sort of talking with my peers about the needs that they have and also things that they enjoyed. A lot of people go to Pittsburgh to see the symphony there. We do have a symphony in Altoona, but I guess obviously the Pittsburgh Symphony has a greater range of things. But another thing too is I think when I look, there's a sort of recent movement to restart our downtown in Altoona because the railroad was huge here. It was actually, Hitler had it on his hit list in Altoona for bombing the railroad because it was the only way across the Allegheny Mountains. So from New York to the west, you have to come through Altoona. So if anyone takes the Amtrak to New York to Pittsburgh, you're going to come through here. And in any case, when that sort of collapsed, our downtown collapsed. But I just noticed through so many of my people like going down there to what's left and what's been sort of revamped. They didn't understand why like walkable cities are good. And I really thought like the church has the opportunity to speak to that need through our generation. And so what I wanted to do was start a Catholic community around arts and culture. In Austria, I got a ton of arts and culture. So when I came here, I really missed arts and culture. And so we started having wine and cheese nights devoted to truth, goodness, and beauty, featuring local artists. I think in Appalachia, we also don't really have an appreciation for art as much. And also there's like an art museum in our town, but it's all modern art, like local modern artists. And I think that shows a desire for art. But as Catholics, we have better art than modern art, right? So we've been able to make a space to feature artists and also for people to enjoy. Like we had 50 people at our last one, and we had a local poet who went to Bucknell. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bucknell University, but Bucknell College. He went there, so he gave an introduction about how important language is in the life of the church. So it wasn't just a poetry night where everyone sits there and doesn't understand what's being said and is like, oh yeah, that was nice.
And then just snap. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He gave a brief introduction about how important language is, and we had some songs and then a little bit about sort of the incarnation. Our next one, which I'm very excited about, is we have, actually you might know him, Friar Vincent Mary. He's a conventual who's at CUA for a bit studying. He is a graduate from Juilliard, and he's from Harrisburg, but he's like 28. And anyways, he's coming to share some opera with us in the next 2 weeks. So to have sort of opera singers in the middle of Appalachia, also on our main street, has been a blessing. But anyways, yeah, that's been a gift because, like I said, my plan was to move away, and from Christmas parties with like 30 people that are rather private, or to these wine and cheese nights. The first time I approached my pastor actually about wine and cheese nights. He said, "That sounds kind of boomer. Don't you think that sounds boomer?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "That's the last thing that I want." So I was just talking with everyone, and I think we sort of, when going back to that quote, "Beauty will save the world," we think that beauty might not be interesting to young people, but I think that's all that they want in their life. I mean, the world has never been uglier, honestly, architecturally, social media, family life, and we sort of provide sort of a way out of that. And I think my peers have really enjoyed it. So it's been a testament that like Catholic excellence is a great way to evangelize and, I mean, save souls, I guess, in the light of Dostoevsky.
Yeah, it's I'm in the, I think it might be a small minority. I hope I'm proving wrong, but that young adult ministry is not complicated. I was an RA at Catholic U, and a successful event was where there was food and like a free t-shirt. Like that was guaranteed attendance. The content didn't really matter. Obviously, if you could entertain people, like that was helpful, but everyone will come for food or for a free t-shirt. And then that idea of just like, they want community, they want people to know that like they have like-minded people. Young adults are really interested in getting married and dating. Like, so like that's like a big part of it. And if you can feed them like physically, obviously, but also like the soul, right? Like, I think, like you said, when like you were talking to clients, they have this image of what they want, but they don't necessarily have the language for it. I think that's a large part of our generation, is they have this desire for something. They know that the culture isn't really giving it, right? But they don't know how to express it. And so it sounds like your group is giving them the language, or at least like, you know, tapping at the desire that they have. And so they stay hungry and they keep coming back because they want.
Yes. I mean, that's sort of the goal. And I guess we, like, before we have a night about walkable cities, right, which sounds sort of boring, I guess we wouldn't market it like that. We sort of have to increase the buy-in from these, you know, 50, 60 people that have been coming to these events. And also, one thing is there's this, when we talk about sort of revamping our downtown, there's a Protestant church that has been very involved and also sort of passive aggressive to in their marketing towards the church. And they started somewhere else. They actually bought like the largest church next to our cathedral, and they will ask people when they're parking if they're here for Sunday service. And I'm like, no, I'm going to mass, right? But they've done a wonderful job of cultivating entrepreneurs to buy up the downtown, and they bought up like almost the whole main street. And we were able to have our night there on beauty. Like, we had a picture of the baby Jesus next to the manger holding the Eucharist. It was like on our poster on our main street, which has been sort of revamped by people that are rather hostile to the church. And when we talk about sort of not knowing why things are good, like a lot of them are just doing it for quote unquote the aesthetic. And when we do things for the aesthetic, what happens is 50 years again come down the road and our children hate it, and then we end up bulldozing it all, and we start the process over again, right? So, you know, I'm thinking like as a means of evangelization, my generation, our generation, is seeking beauty. And like you said, they don't really know why things are beautiful, or they don't know the language to talk about, or they don't know what the goal is. They just know that they want something that looks like Europe, but they don't understand why Europe is nice and has walkable cities. And so as a church, I think we can bring value to our community by saying, like, we did this already and this is why it works. And that would be interesting for my peers. So we have had a few non-Catholics come, and I think it's just a testament again that one of the best things the church has done is its tradition in the arts and culture and in beauty. And we just can't, I think we sort of have to rediscover that. And because what you said earlier about ugly churches, it's something that's certainly been forgotten.
But yeah, so look, Ethan, you're taking the entrepreneurship to the faith, right, and to evangelization, being able to bring it to people. And Father, you do wine and cheese nights too, so it's not entirely boomer.
No, I did. Yeah, I did over the summer. I did. It was actually very successful. A few boomers came, but no, it was actually a great cross sectionality of the parish, right? Like I didn't know what to expect. It was an event called In Vino Veritas, and we read an encyclical and wine and cheese, and it was really, it was just 4 weeks, right? Kind of like a one-off try it thing, but again, like ministry is like alcohol, like does bring people together. And like if you like have free booze, or we can be more sophisticated, free beer and wine, you got them.
It'd be like booze and the Bible, our next young adult event. I'm just kidding, but
hey, I'm for it.
Father Lamna still be there.
Yeah, I'll drive. I'll make the drive.
Well, too, I mean, we're working with sort of young people that are just getting on their feet. Some of them want to get married, and they don't always have the disposable income to go out to a nice night and even get nicer wine. So a few elders in our community, seniors in our community, have also donated wine. So we've been using Austrian wine at the last two, which is like honestly pretty good white wine. And I think that's been also a pull for people. It's like we can get nice wine, even for non-Catholics that come to these they are private events. But people like invite their friends and stuff. That's been sort of a hit, that they can try wine that they would otherwise not spend, the $20 on the bottle for. And all those ways are ways to bring benefit to people. And I mean, we talk about evangelization in business. Businesses exist to fulfill a need. And I think when we're trying to evangelize, the easiest way to sort of introduce them to the gospel is by fulfilling the needs first. And I guess it's always been the approach in America, right? When you consider St. Francis Xavier Cabrini starting a hospital, right, to fulfill a need that wasn't necessarily first spiritual, right? But they encountered the church through having their needs fulfilled. And that's the story of the lives of the saints, right? And something that we can learn from business, and something that I certainly have learned from business. And even when it comes to development, right? The little development experience that I've cultivated in the last year, using this for my own community, the introduction to the arts that I've had from the opportunity that Franciscan gave me with study abroad to bring that back for the good of the church. It's all sort of evangelization and business have crossed paths so well now that I've been home in these last 6 months, and it's a gift.
Yeah, and I think your point, filling a need, right? And that's where you generate value for the consumer, right? And so like in economics, we talk about consumer surplus, right? So it's, I get a pencil for 72 cents, but it costs them 50 cents. Or I would pay, up to $1. And so like my net profit is 28 cents. And if it costs them 50 cents to make it, their profit is 22 cents. And so we're both better off, right? Like we've taken the sum that's greater than the parts. And so recognizing that we are able to generate value for people in the market, but also that's what our faith is, right? Is to give these solutions and these ideas out into the world, right? And I think your point on Europe, right? People it's become all of a sudden in vogue, right? Kind of in the post-COVID, right? That like there's a record number of flights to Europe, and it is very walkable. And people are like, oh, I lose so much weight, it's the food. Well, part of it is you're walking a lot more. The food is also very good. But like the walkable cities, I am very fortunate. I live in Alexandria, Virginia, so just south of DC. But it was built in the 1700s, 1725, I think. And so it's kind of like, Boston or Georgetown. It's this very colonial city. The vice president used to live here. The former secretary of state lived here. So there's a few kind of people, but it's very walkable, which makes it very pleasant. And also all the proportions are built for the way that we see, right? Like it's not, the signs aren't giant, right? They're for pedestrians. They're because you're walking around the sidewalk. And so you have all these different things. So Father Lomnitzer has a transition in mind though, with that, because,
I would also like to just be included in this conversation of saying that I live in a walkable town. The rectory and the parish are very close to Main Street, and Main Street here has everything. I often describe people that I live in a Hallmark movie town. And that's very exciting, and it makes it easy. Like we can do Corpus Christi processions on Main Street, and it's not a far walk from the church, right? And it's about the church engaging society in many different ways, which I think is what Veritas Catholic Radio Network does. And that was the transition I had pre-planned. A little shout out to our parent. The people who put us, our broadcasters, the people who had the great idea to put us out there. That, when you're flipping through the radio channels, if people still do that, I think they do. You could. I flip through everything.
Our broadcaster,
right? That you can kind of just stumble upon something, right? Or like that. So I saw a post about this the other day on LinkedIn, right, of where Catholic content creators are, right? Like they're kind of just everywhere now. Like they're all over Instagram, YouTube. They're even reaching Substack. I'm not a Catholic influencer, but I'm on LinkedIn, right? There are a lot of Catholic influencers on LinkedIn that like to be normal. And to show that the faith isn't just a silo thing. It's not just a part of your life, right? But it informs everything that you do. And it doesn't have to be controversial, even though it comes at heads with sometimes what's going on politically, or sometimes people just don't agree with what we believe in. But that it's the idea of human flourishing, which is in the church. And so I think that's what this podcast hopes to do, and that's what Veritas hopes to do, and right is this idea of just like engaging the culture and renewing everything.
Renewing everything. That's a good line.
Well, yeah, renewing the world. I was trying to say a phrase, but I didn't know if it was trademarked by a certain institution. So
transform the world and renew the church or something.
Yeah. So
shout out Napa.
So yeah, I hope that transition went really well, and I hope I made my point.
I think you did. So Ethan, I have a lightning round for you. Are you ready? So the key is like lightning. It's brief, to the point, and it's electric. So but obviously you can expand.
And it's so exciting. I'm starting to maybe like it.
Maybe. So with most things that I've introduced Philo on Mr. 2, he hates it until eventually he likes it. And then he tells me, we should do this, or why don't we do this? Or this is such a great idea I came up with. And so, yeah. But anyways, serif or sans serif?
Oh, serif, because it's inspired by the human hand.
Ooh, I'm going to have to ask you more about that later. Favorite church you've ever been in?
I want to say St. Peter's, but I feel like that's like basic.
That's a cop-out. Apart from St. Peter's, how's that?
The most amazing experience for me going into church was there's a church is it the Ecstasy of St. Teresa of Avila? There's a
Santa Maria Vittoria, that one.
Well,
the other one.
That wasn't the church. There's another church across the street from it, and I was just like church hopping in Rome as one does, and integrating Catholic art in my work all the time. I have a lot of art like on Pinterest, and I walked in and there was always this always this favorite art piece that I liked. I forget which saint, but he's like reaching up to Christ on the cross, but also Christ is like reaching out to him. So you can't really tell if you are taking up Christ's suffering or if he's coming into your suffering, right? And I always loved that. And I accidentally found it in Rome, and that was the best experience ever.
What's one piece of advice for aspiring designers?
Ask more questions to the client.
Ask more questions. Gothic, Romanesque, or Baroque? Hint: there are wrong answers. So
Baroque.
Oh, woo! 1.1 for the good guys. I always say if it ain't Baroque, fix it.
You should have known the answer. Like, why would I like Austria? Right? It's the most Baroque.
It is. It's a little Rococo, like a lot of fat gold cherubs falling off the ceiling. Beautiful. But that's fine. You guys do you. Gothic is what heaven is. It's disciplined. It's ordered. It's oriented to the heights. So, but it's okay. And favorite Catholic artist, and could be an architect, painter, or composer.
I'm going to say Giotto because he was sort of revolutionary in that he started to portray the human Jesus Christ as what he was, as us, as a human in some way, right? I guess that's a whole different topic, but you know what I'm saying, okay? So
that's a good one. Plus, it's fun to say Giotto, right?
Giotto is great, and he's all over Assisi. For anyone who doesn't know his work, just Google Giotto and Assisi, and really his life of Christ is magnificent. We're actually putting his paintings in our school hall for the kids in our school to see, to just communicate that beauty through that.
He's the reason why Catholic, in the Latin, right, Catholic art is different than Eastern art, right? It's him. So I think that's like, maybe that's even like but I guess never mind.
The hinge piece. And isn't he a artist in the Gothic period?
He's like sort of on the cusp, right? That's what I'm saying. He's leading us in to humanism,
to the Renaissance, but it's Gothic. So, anyways, I win. All right, what's your favorite logo of all time and why?
Favorite logo of all time? That's difficult.
Nike swoosh, right? Just do it. No, you don't have to.
I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry.
Ooh, is too many good ones or too many? What's my favorite logo?
It isn't my favorite. Like I have a few, but I just haven't like looked into them. I mean, we see logos so many times. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm now trying to think of my favorite logo, and it's a tough one. Well, I guess we're both stumped, Ethan. So,
favorite.
Yeah. This is podcast logo. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
So,
The Veritas logo.
Right answer.
What's your confirmation saint?
My confirmation saint is Saint Eusebius of Vercelli, because I was sort of crazy in high school and I wanted to like fight heretics, right? But I'm a little bit more like chill. So
Eusebius? I never heard of him. So but I'm sure he's a good guy. So Google afterwards. And last but not least, what's the most underrated aspect of branding?
The initial part of like sitting down and understanding what you want to say. People just forget about that part and they just want to like have aesthetic branding. And that's not how it works, right? Because if you don't sit down and have a conversation, outline what you want to say, then your branding is going to sort of be saying everything, right? So that's the most important part.
Ooh, it's like thinking outside the box, Ethan. Where can people like, follow, and subscribe you and your work and get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I think ethanpotter.tw is my LinkedIn handle. On Instagram, the Ethan Potter. If you're interested in sort of building Catholic community surrounded by arts and culture in Appalachia, you can follow Railroad City Catholics. And That's it.
Railroad City Catholic, I think, is one of the coolest.
I love it.
I've
Yeah,
ever
that's
of anything.
RCC.
That's amazing.
Oh, now do you have quarter zips or please vest that say Railroad City Catholic? Because that's my new biker group.
Yeah, we'll wear them on the show if you make them.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Ethan, this has been great letting you in front of the camera. I think we might do it again. See how the people respond. But we'll see you next week. And until then, everyone, work hard and pray harder.